Good afternoon, friends. Steve Benoon with Israeli News Live. And listen, today we're going to be getting into a broadcast here that I think you're going to find interesting. It's a video that was sent to me by a precious sister, Anna. She was a little bit surprised, I think, too, by this video right here, Gaza's future foretold in Bible prophecy, exploring Zephaniah's end time warnings. This is the president of the Church of God who's speaking on that broadcast. They're going to be getting deeper into that here in just a little bit. Also want to remind you, your support is greatly needed here, and we do appreciate you supporting the broadcast. Here, IsraeliNewsLive.org. You can donate there online. You can still send to our P.O. box here. We're monitoring a little closer now what's going on there, and we would certainly appreciate your support. Also tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, www.x39hub.com. We have our weekly meeting on Lifewave, and I think you'll find interesting. I'm going to share here with you here in a little bit a testimony. This is on John Moore's radio show and on the roundtable on Tuesdays. I'm always a part of that. And we had a guy call in that says it's the real deal. I'll play that at the end of the broadcast for you. But lifewave.com/Benoon. And of course, they're doing a special right now too. So you might want to take advantage of that for about the next week. You get a free Silent Nights when you order X39, X49. I encourage X39, X49 really, really a lot. Those are amazing. It'll rebuild your cardiovascular system. The test studies, we'll go into that later. This broadcast, though, is of a vital importance to me. This man is using Zephaniah's prophecy. I'm going to play about a minute and a half of this to get started. We'll kind of jump back to it from time to time. We're going to examine Zephaniah's prophecy. We're going to be looking at the Bible, what the Bible really says about Gaza, when it was destroyed, and of course other things. And actually, too, some very eerie prophecies Zephaniah made that go beyond that of Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron. So let's listen into what this man says here.
Israel, hostages. Is it even possible for there to be peace in Gaza? These have been continuing headlines and news discussions since the horrific October 7th, 2023 attack by Hamas on Israel, and then Israel's determination to wipe out the terrorist organizations in that area. The resultant loss of life and the decimation of Gaza is evident by the pictures you are seeing. President Trump made a major dive into this issue, and last week he made the bold statement that the Palestinians can't resettle the area. With all the devastation and unexploded munitions that litter the area, how could anyone live there? Trump raised possibilities that hadn't been voiced before. It stirred some controversy, but it's also beginning to make some sense. This suggestion that the Palestinians should be relocated and resettled in surrounding Middle Eastern nations like Jordan and Egypt and Saudi Arabia have the world talking. Once he made his statement, the world is a different place than it was just a few weeks ago. And some are beginning to consider that suggestion. Note what Jordanian President Abdullah said just this week about his proposal.
Mr. President, I truly believe that with all the challenges that we have in the Middle East, that I finally see somebody that can take us across the finish line to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to all of us in the region. And it is, I think, our collective responsibility in the Middle East to continue to work with you, to support you, to achieve those lofty goals. So I'm very delighted to be here. And as you said, sir, we've got some very interesting discussions ahead of us.
Very good.
Perhaps unwittingly, Trump's statements do bear some merit when you look in the Bible and history and see that what he is proposing has worked in the past. And Gaza itself is mentioned in Bible prophecy. We just may see that prophecy being fulfilled before our eyes today. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the merits of relocating the Palestinians. It has been a failed experiment to have Hamas ruling in that area of Gaza right next to Israel. They are terrorists, and they are...
All right, so we fast forward up to 6 minutes and 20 seconds into the video so we can see where he talks about Zephaniah's prophecy. Let's listen close.
Christ. In verse 4, it says, "For Gaza will be forsaken. I will destroy you, so there shall be no inhabitant." As the chapter goes on, it speaks of the return of Jesus Christ. Look at these pictures. This is complete devastation of an area that we haven't seen anything like it. This area is uninhabitable. Could this be the destruction that will come to Gaza before Christ's return? How long would it take to clear these ruins and rebuild this place? Will it be inhabited again? Well, it will be. Zephaniah goes on, and it speaks of the time after Christ's return and how the remnant of the house of Judah will reside there. Notice what it says in Zephaniah 2 and verse 7. The coast shall be for the remnant of the house of Judah. It's not that today. They shall feed their flocks there, for the Lord their God will intervene for them. This hasn't happened. And the Bible says that land will go to the Jews. It's not for the Jews today and wouldn't be if it's rebuilt and re-inhabited by the Palestinians. We live in...
All right. So he's proposing, instead of genocide, just relocate all the Palestinians. That's really what he's saying there. And he's trying to make this on a biblical claim, that Judah is going to be the one that will dwell in that land at that time. Well, Judah did. And Judah did this after, of course, the Babylonians themselves actually totally destroyed and decimated that area. But you got to remember, the scripture doesn't just say Gaza, does it? No, it doesn't. Let's take a look at what he's quoting from, Zephaniah chapter 2. Before the decree bring forth the day when one passeth of the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. Now, by the way, seek ye the Lord, all you humble of the earth, that have executed his ordinance. Seek righteousness, seek humility. It may be you shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe unto the inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of the Akerites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, the land of the Philistines. I will even destroy you, that there shall be no inhabitant. And the sea coast shall be pastures, even meadows for shepherds, and the folds for flocks. For it shall be a portion of the remnant of the house of Judah, whereon they shall feed, in the houses of Ashkelon shall they lie down in the evening. For the Lord their God will remember them and turn their captivity. Now, if you recall, this was prophesied not only by Zephaniah, it was prophesied by Jeremiah, Zechariah, and they all prophesied of the return. In fact, Jeremiah said 70 years you'll be down in Babylon. And the Jews did return under the Babylonian king. If you remember that, we had Darius, Cyrus, Artaxerxes. Under Cyrus, though, is a return to rebuild the lands. Of course, Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, all three had already been decimated by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II in a whirlwind of fighting over an Egyptian province. Yeah, it was actually an Egyptian outpost. A lot of people seem to forget that fact of the matter. But yeah, and it's not just Gaza. See, the problem is in modern state Gaza today, the Palestinian territory, Ashkelon is not included. And I think a good thing would be to look at is a map of Israel just to prove this point here. If we go there and we take a closer look, and let me blow the page up so you can see it. Get it quite large here. There's Gaza right there. You see there? That's Gaza in that light green highlighted area. Ashkelon, though, is quite a bit north of there. And Ekron, it doesn't show Ekron on the map there, but Ekron would be going in between Ashkelon and that of Jerusalem, right around this area right in here. Definitely nothing to do with Gaza and that destruction that's spoken of in Zephaniah. Why didn't they all get blown to ruins and blown to smithereens if this man is really being truthful about the matter? And the reason being is because the whole issue is, and I'm going to get it even closer here to where we can see this whole area better. See, here's Ashkelon right there in the dark green area. Here's Gaza in that gray line going down, kind of looking like an arm and a hand there. That's Gaza. And Ashkelon is no part of it whatsoever. Ekron is kind of where Kiryat Malachi is, in that area there. That would be where Ekron is today. But it has nothing to do with that destruction that Zephaniah spoke about there. Let's look at it. Let's take a look at a little bit more here. Jeremiah says here, "Thus saith the Lord, behold, the waters rise up out of the north, and shall become an overflowing stream, and they shall overflow the land and all that is therein, the city and them that dwell therein. The men shall cry, and all the inhabitants of the land shall wail. At the noise of the stamping of hoofs of his strong ones, and the rushing of his, chariots, and the rumbling of his wheels. The fathers look not back to their children for feebleness of hands. Because of the day that cometh to spoil all the Philistines, to cut them off from Tyre and Zidon, every helper that remaineth, for the Lord will spoil the Philistines, the remnant of the isle of Caphator. Baldness is come upon Gaza. Ashkelon is brought to naught, the remnant of their valley. How long wilt thou cut thyself?" All right, Jeremiah prophesying of those events as well. Zechariah, Ashkelon shall see it and fear. Gaza also shall be sore pained, and Ekron for expectation shall be ashamed, and the king shall perish from Gaza. Wow, the king from Gaza? Yeah, they actually had a king there that was over that province there for the Egyptian outpost, and he actually fought very brave against the Nebuchadnezzar. And Ashkelon shall not be inhabited, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. So, what type of evidence do we have to support this? Well, even in this article here, The Fury of Babylon, Ashkelon, and the Archaeology of the Destruction. This article right here, this is real archaeological proofs here. Nebuchadnezzar marched to the city of Ashkelon and turned the city into heaps of ruins, according to the Cuneiform Babylonian Chronicle. The vitrified brick, crushed pottery, and charcoal found throughout the city suggest the terror of the Babylonian destruction. Two superpowers dominated the Near East in the late 7th century BCE. In the east, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which extended control over Syria after Assyria declined, and in the west, Egypt, which dominated the southern Levant. In 605 BCE, Babylon pushed west. Newly crowned King Nebuchadnezzar II won a decisive battle against the Egyptians at Carchemish on the upper Euphrates. The next year, he moved south, capturing and burning the Philistine seaports of Ashkelon. Notice, he moved south. Remember what that scripture said about that area there? Let's see, I think it's Jeremiah. "Thus saith the Lord, behold, the waters rise up out of the north, and shall become an overflowing stream. They shall overflow the land and all that is therein." Well, we even have a video here to kind of depict those battles. Take a look at this.
Were strong and dominated this war. Assyrian troops retreated to avoid being completely destroyed. The Egyptian army received a great defeat and they had to retreat. Nebuchadnezzar was truly a powerful commander, and his main target was Egypt. Instead of marching on the retreating Assyrians, he began to follow the Egyptians. He wanted to completely destroy the Egyptian army. They followed the Egyptians to Hama but were unable to capture them. Pharaoh also managed to escape. Thus, the Battle of Carchemish ended with the Babylonian victory. Nebuchadnezzar conquered almost the whole of the Middle East for the rest of his life. He completely destroyed Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar, who destroyed the Temple of Solomon, is a historical figure disliked by Jews and Christians today. See you in the next videos.
The point being right here was showing you that wave there as they moved down through there, and they came from the north going down. And yes, and of course it is written in the Babylonian history as well. We have not only archaeological proof of all this, but the Babylonian history clearly depicts that that Nebuchadnezzar came down and conquered this whole region. You know, I'm a member of the academia right here. Why did Nebuchadnezzar II destroy Ashkelon in 604 BCE? Let's take a little closer look at this here. And this article here, written by Alexander Fontalican, and I just highlighted some portions in here. According to the excavator, it is probably the pro-Egyptian policies of the Philistines of Ashkelon and Ekron, which led to their demise in the winter of 604 BCE. Lipschitz suggests that none of the local kings dared stand up to Nebuchadnezzar except for the king of Ashkelon. I made that mistake. It was the king of Ashkelon, not Gaza. The proximity of Ashkelon to the Egyptian border and the long years of the Egyptian rule were apparently the factors that led the king of this small kingdom to continue to rely on Egyptian assistance. Not understanding the change that had taken place in the international balance of power, he refused to capitulate to Babylon. And by the way, this whole area here was considered, it was a hub of international trade. I don't know if you know this or not, but even what they call the Suez Canal, that actually began in earnest way back many years ago as well. That's, you know, it was later become more formalized, but and now, of course, Israel and all these rich billionaires are all very much into wanting to turn around and make another canal. Only this time they want to make it from the south port of Gaza going all the way down into the Gulf of Aqaba. And let's see, going back to that map there, let me just kind of share with you where that would be there. They want to make it just following that line right there. It's another reason why they want Gaza, because you can't build it if Gaza's sitting in the way, can you? No, you can't. They want to build a canal all the way to the Gulf of Aqaba. And why would they want to do this? Because if you build that canal down to the Gulf of Aqaba, you'll also create a shorter trade route to the Red Sea, and Israel would be able to control that today. And don't forget that tri-city state that they're going to be doing, and that's going to be, and let's go here to Google Maps real quick. I want to just kind of remind you of this. Actually, that was something I was wanting to get into with John Moore. We got into Planet X instead on his new program that he has out on Rumble. I'll have to share that with you guys later. It's a very interesting show. He's doing a lot of interviews there. I made the mistake when I was looking way down here and even down as far as Mecca. And I'm like, oh, Steve, you're not very smart on that. You should know better, right? Because it is actually, Neom is going to be built right in here, right in this area, right here. You see, this is Nuweiba Beach there where Ron Wyatt found the chariot wheel that's so famously on the book I wrote, Yam Suf. I was given permission to publish that. And by the way, due east there is, that right there is the easterly projection there. That mountaintop is burnt. And I actually discovered that when I was looking at Ron Wyatt's thing there. It always made me wonder, because there was that wind that blew all night. Wonder how that happened, right? Well, anyway, over here, there's Jabal al-Az is right here. Look at it. It's actually become made famous here on the map, and that will be part of the Neom City District is Jabal al-Az, where God came down and met Moses, right? So you've got that there. You've got, and I think what they're going to do is they're going to take and make Gaza here. They're going to make this. They're going to take and put the third temple here in Jerusalem. They're going to come down here to Goshen, and they're going to make a triangular type of tri-city state with Egypt, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. That's just something I throw in there for you guys. All right, so anyway, so we see these prophecies. And by the way, I do want to come back later in another video, and I want to look at Zephaniah chapter 1. It seems to be that that God is actually referring to chapter 2, is referring to chapter 1, but I just can't help but wonder if it's not really two different types of destructions. Because this is actually the asuf, as they say, consume. It doesn't mean consume. It is gathering together all the peoples of the face of the earth, is what it's saying. And I will consume man and beast, and I will consume the fowls of heaven and the fishes of the sea. That's a different destruction altogether. And I think God was, through Zephaniah, prophesying of what he's going to do when this binary system comes through and totally just decimates the earth. We'll go into that on another day. I did do an amazing video recently on our Patreon channel. You might definitely want to check that out as well. All right, coming back here, we looked at that video there. We see the article here. And this, I'll put this in the link for you guys here. You know, the total destruction. The next year he moved south, capturing and burning the Philistine seaport of Ashkelon. The ferocity of the Babylonians is amply demonstrated by the archaeological evidence. Fire swept through the city's winery. Photo was taken, leaving the remnants of a charred wood, brick, and pottery were melted into glass. I mean, that's some serious burning, right? Ceramic jars were smashed, strewn, shelters, right? All this stuff happened. See, and that's exactly what he did. Look at the map there. He comes out, hits the north, comes all the way down through the south, and just crushes Ashkelon and Gaza. Crushes it. You know, and, oh gosh. You know, just all kinds of things here that show just the devastation. A remarkable article, too. It's worth reading. You might want to take the time to look at that, the academia behind this. In this article here that I was sharing, also highlighted some more issues in here. In a few cases, joints were even found between pieces found in the field and pieces found in the destruction. Debris. It is therefore clear that the fields were deposited, the buildings constructed, used briefly, and destroyed completely within the space of a very, very few years. Let's see, the 7th century marked at Ashkelon probably lasted no more than 10 or 11 years. This article goes into about the metropolitan of that area and how amazing the city was. I do believe I had more stuff in there, but I forget exactly what all. Could not enjoy enormous prosperity. Okay, I forget now. But anyway, let's move on here. And here's what gets me, right? We know that, you know, this whole thing about the Palestinians, that they are, you know, naturally Israel brings in Hamas, funds Hamas to be able to totally destroy and attack Israel. No doubt was inside job led in. 6 hours, Israel does absolutely nothing, even though Jonathan Pollard says that the helicopter pilots were locked, loaded, and ready to go. They knew the attack was happening, but they couldn't get the orders to get off the ground to go help their people. No. Why? They wanted the captives to go back. They wanted to kidnap all these people. They wanted to justify the total demise of this area there. So you would believe it's biblical prophecy, which now I'm proving to you it's not biblical prophecy. That prophecy was fulfilled 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago. And yes, Judah did come back. When the king said that the Israelites could go back, they did. And of course they went down and took over that area there that belonged to them. Sure they did. But then again, come the time of the Romans, they go back into captivity all over again. Why? Because they killed their Messiah, Jesus Christ, who came to deliver them and to show them the true way. So they get destroyed. The temple is destroyed by the Romans and exiled all over again. But even though they were exiled, not all the Israelites were exiled. There were many Palestinians, or what we call Palestinians today, who were actually the farmers, the rural people of the lands. Even what does it say? What did he say in Zephaniah that it would be? He said that they would actually be the, let's go back in here. He said it'll be for the what? And it shall be for a portion for the remnant of the house of Judah, whereon they shall feed, and the houses of Ashkelon shall lie down in the evening. They're going to come back. It's going to be for folds and for flocks. The farmers, they went down there. Now, oddly enough, we can look at many things. DNA research confirms link between Jews, Arabs, common ancestry dates back 4,000 years, study says. That's by the Associated Press, right? Now, new DNA-based research reveals a genetic link between Jews and Palestinians, suggesting the two peoples locked in a bitter struggle for more than a century indeed share a common ancestry dating back 4,000 years. That's DNA saying that, right? Well, it's not just DNA saying it. You have here, Harris, blood brothers, Palestinians and Jews shared genetic roots. They covered that very article, right? You have people like Tzvi Misneh on Shvi Yisrael, Israel Returns there. That's their website there. They're quoting and also quoting from the same article where he speaks about here, the lost Palestinian Jews. And Tzvi, he says here, we are of the same race and blood. Cooperation will bring, great prosperity to the land, wrote Amir Faisal to Felix Frankfurt in 1917. Faisal was known for his affinity to the Zionists who had begun streaming into the Holy Land. In 1919, he signed cooperation agreement with Chaim Weizmann, to whom he wrote that he was mindful of the racial kinship. All right, look at that. Chaim Weizmann, racial kinship and ancient bonds existing between the Arabs and the Jewish people. By the way, Chaim Weizmann is written about in Holocaust Victims Accused, where the Jews that were being murdered in the Holocaust, he failed to help rescue them. So I don't think very highly of this guy at all. Anyway, Faisal's paternal line was Hashmonite, he says, meaning he was direct descendant from Muhammad, but the mother of his natural grandfather, King On, was described from family of forced Jewish converts to Islam that immigrated to the east bank of the Jordan. Misneh, that's the guy that you see here, pictured here, and I may have pronounced his name wrong, I'm sorry about that, Sinai, maybe is how you say his name, says that he can declare with certainty that nearly 90% of all Palestinians are descendants from the Jews. And what's more, about half of them know it. And I didn't know that until, and I've shared this with you guys many times, I was my doctor in Orlando. At that time, he had a girl that ran his pharmacy inside of his clinic there, and she was Palestinian. And I always knew she was Palestinian, but one day she's talking about how the Jews were so hateful to the Palestinians, and she said, it makes no sense to me, Steve. She says, we're Jews ourselves. Our family, many Palestinians are Jewish, and we know it. We just don't practice the way they do. You know, many of us have been, either we went to Christianity or we went to Islam, one or the other. So very, very true. Misneh says that the vast majority of today's Palestinians are descendants from the remnants of the Jewish families who managed to avoid being deported over the past 2,000 years or returned to their lands after they were exiled, as the Jews in the Holy Land suffered blow after blow. So the evidence is just really, really overwhelming. We're going to come to that in just a moment. I wanted to play one other thing for you guys here. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go, right there. So I wanted to share with you, I was looking for Israel Finkelstein, who is a professor of archaeology in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And then I run across instead Normal Finkelstein, who is the son of Holocaust survivors. And he's been banned from Israel for daring to expose the genocide, apartheid, things that are going on in that country there. This is where he was being interviewed by BBC News. I want you to hear this just for a moment because I think it's very important. And there are a lot of Holocaust survivors that very strongly support this man and are ashamed. In fact, I'll show you that clip there, and I'll put it in the description for you, though, before I exit out of here. That's this one right here.
whether Israel has a right to exist. The issue was literally whether Gaza has a right to exist.
Now, what's going to happen? The guy that just stood up, he's a Holocaust survivor. He's angry at somebody for saying something in the crowd, and I guess because they were angry at Finkelstein for being standing up for the rights of Palestinians. So watch what he says.
What you are doing is what Hitler did to the Jews. I'm a survivor, okay? And don't do it.
I respect that.
Don't do it to me.
I respect that, and I respect
I don't respect you.
No, you don't have to. That's why we live in this country.
Be ashamed of yourself.
So you had two Holocaust survivors there, no doubt children during the Holocaust, because most only the survivors now are those that were children. But they both said they should be ashamed of themselves for speaking against Mr. Finkelstein. I wanted to play, though, a little clip here of what he says here on the BBC interview here, because I think it's very powerful in the situation we're dealing with.
You said of Israel, it's a crazy country. It's like a junkie. Every few years they go to war. They need their fix. They're lunatics. American Jews don't want to defend that.
Yeah, Israel is carrying on in a lunatic fashion. I would like to ask you...
And Hezbollah, who you went to meet?
I would like to ask you, name me another country in the world. 2003, Israel was the cheerleaders for the war in Iraq. 2006, it went into war in Lebanon. 2008, 2009, it attacked Gaza. Now it talks about attacking Iran. If you read the Israeli papers every day, they talk about, should we attack Gaza? Should we attack Lebanon? Should we attack Syria? Name me another country in the world that falls into that category.
Well,
that's a lunatic state.
Israel would point to a number of its neighbors and say exactly the same thing.
No, you show me how many countries has Iran planned to attack? No, let's ask a simple question. How many countries in the last 10 years has Iran attacked?
When you look...
No, that's a fair question. How many countries in the last 10 years has Iran attacked?
When you look at the history of Israel, do you not have some sympathy or understanding, people would ask, as to why they feel threatened and why
we're not talking about why they feel threatened. We're talking about a country that every 2 or 3 years goes to war. And if you follow the press as I do, every day they talk about let's attack this country, let's attack that country. That's not normal. And when I call it a lunatic state...
So why is it that the Israeli people vote in this government that you say is responsible for that?
I think it's a regrettable fact. I don't say these things with glee. I'm not happy about that fact. As the American economist, the Nobel laureate Paul Krugman, put it in the New York Times last week, he said it's perfectly obvious Israel's headed towards national suicide. It's become a crazy state. And he says it's not good for Jews, it's not good for the world where Israel is headed.
And yet it's still seen, of course, as the safe haven, the homeland for the Jews. You have a right to live there, although you're banned.
Safe haven for Jews. It's really not a safe haven for Jews either, because as Barry Chamish told me right before he died, he said, they're trying to still kill me, Steve. And he ended up losing his life. So, of course, they would probably argue it was natural causes, but he actually told me that he knew he was coming to his end. There were too many Jews that have been killed. Any Jewish person that ever tries to speak out gets targeted. My family knows all too well what happens when you go to speak out. And to make that even more clear, there was another strange event here where they come and they put a pager in his pocket.
I got you a pager. Want a pager, Norman?
Jews were known for being smart. You know what?
Here's your pager, Norman.
You know what?
It's fucking Holocaust tonight, you piece of shit.
This is the type of nonsense that's happening in the world. Those Jews that do speak out get labeled all kinds of things. It's really a crime against humanity. So this whole idea that this minister here Basically, he doesn't condone the genocide. I don't see him say anything like that in his posts there, and I'm sure he sincerely believes what he does. But it doesn't stand the biblical test. It does not stand historicity. It just clearly does not stand any of that. It's a fabrication of lies. And truly, Zephaniah's prophecy was fulfilled. There is archaeological evidence that supports that fact, as I have shared with you today, biblical facts, as I've shared with you today. We've got to put the Bible in the proper perspective if we're ever to know the truth. Anyway, let's continue on here real quick. I want to play this little clip here because tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, we do a live broadcast on www.x39hub.com. For those that want to learn more about Lifewave, the X39 patch that stimulates your GHKCU copper peptide, which in turn stimulates your stem cells that work throughout your entire body. This guy here was on last week. He came on as a call-in guy who had actually signed up with John Moore to do X39. Listen to what Scott says in this testimony here.
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, okay. I know you had trouble earlier with your show. Yeah, I just want to call in and tell people that these patches actually do work. I had to try them myself to find out. Because I thought, boy, so if this works like it says it does, it'd be a really good little business startup, you know. But mostly I got it because of my eyes. My eyes are in really bad shape. My doctor told me years ago I had cataracts, and he said you're going to have these removed eventually. And I was like, oh, geez. Okay. So anyhow, that's why I got on them, is for my cataracts. And then I went in to the doctor after being on X39 and Aeon for about 4-5 months almost. And I asked him before he even started looking at my eyes. And this guy's really good. He has all the newest equipment and everything. And he's been doing it for a long time, this doctor. And I asked him about cataracts specifically, and he laughed. And I said, do they just go away? Because I heard that one or two ladies had said that they just went away. The one lady said that they fell out of her eyes, and I thought, that's ridiculous. That couldn't happen. So I didn't tell him that they fell out of, I didn't tell him those stories. I just asked him, and he laughed at me, and he looked at me like I had two heads, and he just laughed, and a belly laugh. And so then he started looking for my cataracts in this really fancy machine he had there, and he kept saying, open wider. And I said, Doc, it's starting to hurt. And he said, just keep them wide open. And he did this forever. Finally, I said, what are you doing? Is this machine for my cataracts? And he says, yeah, no, I don't know. We'll talk about this later. And then he did the whole exam, and at the very end, he said that he couldn't find them. They'd been diminished. I don't need any surgery, and I never will. And I'm just super happy about what it's done for my vision. I used to have really thick glasses, and now I have thin glasses. And when I was reading the chart at the doctor's office, I could, every time he thought that I'd be done, because they keep records of the last time you were in, how well you could read it. And I just kept reading it. And I was so happy. And I would read a whole line. And he would say, okay, that's very good, Scott. And he'd start scribbling something down, and I start reading the next line. And now I'm 20/20 in my left eye, and my right eye is 20/40. And my right eye, it's the connection between my brain and my eye have been messed up since I was born. And I think it's healing now. I think those stem cells are healing it. So hang Hitler. But you guys, I had to try it first. Know that it's for real, because I'm a Christian man, and I need to know that these people are getting bang for the
C-section, a waste of money. I'm like,
he makes others. I just kind of forgot about it. It works very slowly. I had a hernia, and I don't have one anymore. I don't feel it anymore. I lift weights, and I don't feel my hernia at all, and I never really paid any attention to that. But if you're on the fence, you're wondering if you should buy this, buy it. It really works, and I'm not a salesman either. I don't like selling. People get turned off from salesmen, but I like to help people because I'm a Christian. And
Absolutely awesome testimony there, Scott. No hernia, cataracts gone, and I'm so happy he called in on John Moore's show there. If you want to get the patches, and also want to remind you tonight, x39hub.com is very informal. We just share testimonies with each other, talk about the amazing products there, look at the science behind it, the discoveries, you name it, whatever. We just share informally. You're welcome. 8 p.m. Eastern every Sunday is normally when we have that. But if you're just wanting to order it, lifewave.com/Benoon, BENNUN.com, or not .com, Benoon, lifewave.com/Benoon. I'll put that in the description below for you as well. There is a sale. Don't forget that. I always like to tell you guys about sales. If you decide to become either a brand partner or a preferred customer, you can also get this package here, the X39, X49, and get a free Silent Nights to go with it. And that just helps you sleep. That's really amazing natural product there. And of course, X39, X49, remember, also helps create like a Faraday cage within the skin. It's been proven to do that to protect you from 5G radiation, etc. there. So just want to remind you of those things there. And also don't forget, please support the channel, IsraeliNewsLive.org. You can click there and help us online. God bless you. Have a blessed evening. And don't forget our Patreon channel. We've loaded 2 videos here in the last few days here. Think you'll enjoy them both. And we'll talk to you soon.